This time, I will tell you, this past weekend, we had a tremendous time together as a church for those who came. And we spent Saturday together. We spent Friday evening together. And I've been at the church almost 2 years. Oh, by the way, I'm Reverend Tim, the music director. And this is Reverend Shirley, on the one of the other pastoral members of the staff. I forgot to do that. Sorry. Supposed to do that and I forgot. But we came together and we spent a weekend, and I will say of the 2 years I've been here, it was probably one of the most fascinating, most launching weekends that we've ever had here at Unity of Hollywood. And we want to welcome to the platform the person who brought us to that point today, our guest speaker, Reiter. Let's welcome her today. Thank you, Robin.
Good morning. Are you as excited as I am? Yes. I know especially those who were part of the weekend and know what's coming are especially excited. But we came together this weekend, a group of us, Friday evening and all day yesterday, with an intention to take this ministry to the next level. This ministry, as of this year, has been in existence for 50 years. And that's a powerful thing. It's a powerful thing, and in that 50 years, there have been great moments and great leadership and great people and great growth, and the leadership here decided we want to take a next step. And anytime you have an organization that's been around that long, it's always a good idea now and again to say, who are we right now, and who do we want to become? And that's what the weekend was about. And so a group of core people came together representing all of you, bringing the energies and the intentions and the prayers of all of you. And we came together and we created something magnificent this weekend together. And the two things that came forth out of this weekend is we created a set of core values, 12 core values that this community is going to abide by and give energy to. And we created a brand new mission statement. Isn't that exciting? Yes. It is very exciting. And that's what we have been all about. And it was interesting because when we finally finished yesterday, it was quite a process. We went through lots and lots of sheets of chart paper and scratches out and drafts and back into prayer and back into prayer and another draft and back into prayer. And when we finally got the mission statement finished, Judy said, "I feel like I just had a baby." Because it really was quite an extensive process of birthing a brand new reality for Unity of Hollywood. And so this morning is all about bringing all of you into this new energy, into this new space. And I think you're going to be truly excited about what we have created. So let me start by sharing a story with you about a gentleman who was volunteering for his church, and he was given the task during a vacation Bible school week to entertain and watch over a group of 70 children, ages 5 to 10. Ooh, I know. And he was trying to think about what he would do with these kids and knew it needed to be something, not too structured and something that he could manage by himself. So he had this game he had remembered as a kid that he decided to launch them into. And the game was called Giants, Wizards, and Dwarfs. And the game really didn't have too much of a purpose other than just like a lot of fun and running about wildly. So he clearly explained to the children each of those 3 roles and what it meant and how you played when you decided which one you were going to be. And they all understood the rules. They understood the 3 roles. And he said, so you've got to decide right now, are you a giant, a wizard, or a dwarf? Ready? Go! And chaos broke out, and there were children running and laughing and roaring like giants and casting spells, and they were just having a ball. And he was just kind of standing there, surveying the room and proud of himself for the accomplishments of getting all these kids engaged. And he was kind of pulled out of his glory moment by a little tug on his pant leg. And he looked down, and standing beside him was a little girl, one of the smallest in the group, 5 years old, real wide-eyed. And she looked up at him and she said, excuse me, where do the mermaids stand? Mermaids? There aren't mermaids. There's no such thing as mermaids, and there's not mermaids in this game. There's not mermaids. Oh, yes. Yes, there are, because I am one. I just need to know where I stand. And he stood there kind of dumbfounded for a moment. And he found himself quite struck with the depth of the question that this little guru had just posed. Where do the mermaids stand? The ones that do not fit into the predefined roles and boxes that society tries to place us in. She knew who she was. She knew it without question. But who she was didn't fit the situation. But she wasn't going to just not play. She wasn't going to stand on the sidelines and miss the experience. She knew who she was and needed to know where she, as she was, fit into this picture. Isn't that a wise and powerful question? And he had a moment of clarity. And he looked down and reached out and took her hand. And he said, you know what? The mermaids stand right here next to the king of the sea. So that's a question as a community that you've actually been posing. Because in the world of church, Unity of Hollywood is definitely a mermaid. Definitely. This ministry, this community, which you know probably even if you've just walked through the doors for the first time, does not fit a pre-designed box or definition of traditional church. This ministry is a unique entity with unique gifts. And so what this weekend has been about is really clarifying who are we, so that we can then say, this is who we are, this is where we stand. That's what the weekend has been about, is anchoring into a full and deep understanding of our identity, who we are, what we stand for, what we're about. Because then as we know that, we begin to live it, we begin to get called into it, and the community then becomes a magnet that draws like energy to it. So, are you ready to hear it? So for the first time, I want to invite you to close your eyes so that you can just let the words drop into your soul. And then you're going to be able to see it, and we're going to go through it again. So breathe. This is the new mission statement. Unity of Hollywood is a spiritually progressive community dedicated to healing and transforming the lives of all people through prayer, education, and love. Open your eyes. What do you think? So let's put it up on the screen, and we're going to speak it together. This will be your first time, and this is going to be part of every worship experience. Is this community is going to re-anchor, reaffirm, and live in this truth together. So let us speak this with every cell together. Unity of Hollywood is a spiritually progressive community dedicated to healing and transforming the lives of all people through prayer, education, and love. How does that feel? Ooh, that just gave me God bumps on my head. So what we came to is we sat down and we asked ourselves 3 questions. Who are we? What are we about? And how do we accomplish our intention? And those 3 questions brought us into this statement. So the first part of the statement is, if we can back, there we go. The first part of the statement is, who are we? A spiritually progressive community. It was very important to us that the word spiritual was at the front end of that statement. Spiritual. That moves its way in and through all that we are and all that we do. And that word is part of what makes this community a mermaid. Spiritual. And in Unity, we say Unity as a faith and as a movement is predominantly spiritual, not so much religious. And that is one of the unique characteristics of this community, because there's a lot of baggage that some people have around the word religion and the idea of religion and being religious. Because some of what's embedded in that is dogmatic, is limited, is basically you have to think, believe, and do this to be part of this. And that's not who we are, is it? So spirituality doesn't start when you walk through the door and end when you walk back out. Spirituality is a way of being. Spirituality is how we live our lives as spiritual beings on a spiritual path. Spirituality embeds itself in every facet of our being. And so spiritual community. Progressive. You like that word? Yeah. There's a lot in that word. And that, again, that is identifying. That is sending a clear message about who we are. We are forward thinking. We are visionary. We are courageous in our faith and in our thinking and in our beliefs. We are willing to question ourselves, our beliefs, our leaders, and our teachings. That's progressive. And we are always changing, always growing, and always evolving. And then the word community. I love how the word unity is embedded right in the middle of it. Community, that's what we are. We are a community. We are not existing in a spiritual vacuum. We are in community on this journey. We can know God on our own and by ourselves, and we do that as part of practice, but we're here because of the community, because we are connected, and it is of value for us to be connected to one another. So that is who we are, a spiritually progressive community. Can you jive with that? Do you feel that? Does that feel like a clear definition of who this spiritual home is? So the next question after who we are is, what are we about? What is our mission and purpose? And that's where we come to the next phase. We are dedicated to healing and transforming the lives of all people. Healing and transforming, the energy in those two ideas is about helping people move from feeling that they are broken to knowing that they are whole. Helping people move from feeling separated to knowing that they live and move and have their being in God. Helping people move from being unworthy to knowing that they are a beloved child of God. That's healing, and that's transformation. And that's what the work of this place is. And that next phrase was really, really important to us. The lives of all people. And what that means is it does not matter your station in life, your culture, your race, your gender, your financial position, your job, your sexual orientation, your physical capabilities, your beliefs, your past, your addictions. It does not matter. You are welcome here. Yes. And not only are you welcome, you are embraced, you are accepted exactly as you are, and you are loved as a child of God. And that's what this community stands for. That's what this community stands for. So that's why the phrase, all people, is a piece of that. We are dedicated to transforming the lives of all people. And so that's who we are and what we are about. And then the final piece is, how do we accomplish that intention? What are the tools by which we make it manifest? And there are many, many, many tools and activities and experiences that this community uses to support and realize its mission, but they all fall somewhere under the umbrella of prayer, education, and love. Every activity abides in one of those things. So can we bring it back to the beginning? And I want to say it together again, knowing the depth behind the words, knowing the intention behind the words. So we are speaking this into our own soul, and we are speaking it to the universe to say this is who we are, what we're about, and what we are ready to become. So let's say it with that energy together. Unity of Hollywood is a spiritually progressive community dedicated to healing and transforming the lives of all people through prayer, education, and love. Yes. And I know it is the intention of Reverend Frank and the leadership that the speaking of that by this entire community will happen every Sunday, and that you come to the place very quickly where you can call upon those words without having to read them on the screen, where they live in your very being, so that as you move out and about in your world, and perhaps, perhaps on the bus or at lunch with friends, and someone says, "You go to Unity, right? What is Unity?" And you respond, "Oh, Unity of Hollywood is a spiritually progressive community dedicated to healing and transforming the lives of all people through prayer, education, and love." That's who we are. And just imagine that vibration of the unified energy and the unified vision of the whole community. So the next piece that we want to talk about and I want to share with you is we created a set of 12 core values. Core values that will be the driving force for this community going forward. And we came up with this through a practice I don't know if any of you have ever been part of. There's a great error that happens a lot of times in organizations when they decide that they're ready to make some changes. When they decide it's time to move forward, it's time to do things differently. And a lot of times they'll say, okay, it's time to do things differently, and they'll sit down around a conference room table and say, all right, we know things need to change. What's not working? Have you been part of one of those? What's not working? Basically, it comes from this consciousness of what is broke that we need to fix. Well, we know in Unity that the universe is always listening. And what the universe does is always gives us back a magnified match of what we put out. Whatever we put out, we're going to get back more of it. So if we sit down and say, what's not working, we're going to get back more of what's not working. And it will just perpetuate that energy. So when we sat down together yesterday with the intention for this ministry to change and grow and evolve, the question was, what is right with us? What is working in this ministry? What is good about what we're doing? And everyone divided into groups, and they had big sheets of paper that they filled. We had them taped up all the way across the front of the stage with many, many things about this community that are working and that are right and that are good. And that built the foundation for us to discover our core values of who we are. So I'm going to read them to you. Again, the first time I want you to close your eyes so you can just feel these words and feel how this resonates in your being. At Unity of Hollywood, we value inclusiveness, prayer, inspirational worship, service, growth consciousness, compassionate communication, fellowship, education, spirituality, outreach, leadership, and stewardship. So open your eyes, breathe. How does that feel? Does that feel resonant? And I want to tell you a little bit more about a couple of these. We're going to be doing some deeper work next month. We're going to have one more session where we will gather anyone that wants to be part of it to take these core values one step further, where we're going to clearly define. But we did a little bit of that in our process yesterday. The first value on this list is inclusiveness, which means we value that idea of welcoming, including all. It's that value shows up embedded in the mission statement and as a core value. And the thing about values is that they're not simply words on a piece of paper or framed on the wall. The values become who we are. We are this. And this is how we want to express and show up. Let me tell you a story about a college student named Bill. He was a brilliant young man, quite eccentric and different. And all throughout his college years, he could be found basically wearing the same thing. He had kind of wild, disheveled, tousled hair. He wore T-shirts, usually tie-dye, and quite often they had holes in them. blue jeans, faded, holes, and bare feet. That's how he could be found pretty much every day. And he was a spiritual young man. During his college years, he had found church and God and started practicing spirituality in different ways. And he had kind of gone to some different churches in different times, hadn't really found his right and perfect place. Well, across the street from this campus that he attended, there was a conservative church in every sense of the word. The folks that attended there was conservative, the services were conservative, the dress was conservative, the beliefs were conservative. And they had thought about wanting to do some kind of an outreach, maybe a service for the college students, but didn't quite know where to start, so there wasn't anything in place yet. Well, one Sunday, Bill decided he wanted to try out that church. It's convenient, right across from campus. I'll just give it a shot. So he headed out for church, tousled hair, holey shirt, blue jeans, and bare feet. And by the time he arrived, the service had already started, and the church was packed. And he started down the center aisle looking for a seat. And there was none to be found. And of course, you can imagine that he began to draw attention rather quickly. And he continued down the aisle and was actually getting closer and closer and closer to the pulpit. And there began to be this uncomfortable kind of squirming and a little bit of murmuring of what's going to happen, what is he doing? And he looked around again as he got right up in front of the pulpit, standing there in front of the minister, and saw truly there are no seats. So shrugged his shoulders, squatted down, and sat on the floor. Now, in a college fellowship, that would be a pretty typical practice, but you got to know this church had not ever seen anything like that. Well, once he sat down in his place and eagerly awaited the sermon, from the very back of the room, one of the elder deacons began making his way down the aisle. He was a distinguished man, mid-80s, silver hair, three-piece suit, walked with a cane. And he slowly made his way up the aisle to do what had to be done. And the congregation was silent. You could have heard a pin drop. But, they couldn't blame him. It had to be done, and they were kind of glad it was him doing it, not them. And it was so silent, so still, that all you could hear was the click of his cane as he continued down the aisle closer and closer. And the minister couldn't even begin his sermon until this was taken care of. And so the elderly gentleman found himself all the way at the front, standing beside this wild-haired, barefoot young man, sitting cross-legged. And the deacon dropped his cane on the floor and painstakingly, slowly lowered himself down and sat down on the floor next to Bill. Put his hand on his shoulder because he didn't want him to have to worship alone. And the preacher looked down and said, "What I'm about to preach, you won't remember. But what you just saw, you'll never forget." You see, that's what it looks like when we embody the value of inclusiveness. Is no matter who shows up or how they show up, they are part of us. Are you willing to abide in that? Yes. One of the other values we spent a good bit of time on coming up with the words and what was really in our heart about it is the value that we ended up calling inspirational worship. That we value that here. And in the midst of that, one of the things that showed up again and again and again on those lists of what is right was the message. Reverend Frank's message is right, it's working, it's inspiring. The message of guest speakers is right and working and inspiring. And the music is right and is working and is inspiring. And that is a value that this community holds, that when there is a gathering for worship, whether it be on a Sunday or a Wednesday prayer service or a special service, when we gather, we want that to be inspirational. And we want message and meditation and music that cause us to weep, to laugh, to praise, to stand, to be in God's energy in every way. That is a value. And with it as a value going forward, resources will be committed to message and music Time and energy will be committed to message and music because we value that and the inspirational level. Do you hold that as a value? Inspirational worship. Compassionate communication. This was a really important one that rose up for us. And what this means as a value is that we are a spiritual community. We are here in community and communion with one another. And that when we have something on our heart, we will take it directly to our spiritual brothers and sisters to share what is on our heart. We will do so with compassion, with integrity, and with love. So what that looks like is this. What we wouldn't do is come and say, Reverend Shirley, do you know what? Last Sunday, I went to give Reverend Frank a hug, and he walked right past me. Can you believe he did that? Has Reverend Frank ever done that to you? Because I think maybe it's just that he doesn't like me, or maybe if it's other people, maybe he's just rude, maybe he doesn't. You see where I'm going there? Compassionate communication as a value means I would say, Reverend Frank, last Sunday I came to hug you, and you walked right past me, and I felt hurt by that. See, I speak my truth. My truth. I didn't say, you hurt me. I felt hurt by that. And what's real likely is that coming back from the other direction will be, oh my gosh, Robin, I'm so sorry. I was in the middle of, there was something going on. There was an emergency in the office, and I was just thinking about that. I apologize. Can I give you a hug? Do you see how that works? That I authentically bring my truth right to the person, without involving anybody else in that dialogue. And I do so from my heart. And what happens is we open up, we connect, we heal, and we love one another more deeply as a result. Now, I know, well, I shouldn't say I know, but I'm going to guess a lot of people did not grow up in a family system with that particular model going on. You know, the other kind of model of I'll go over here and I'll go over there, and I'm not going to say what I really feel, I'm not going to speak my truth, and we hide it, we hold it, we give it to somebody else, and then it just festers into yuck. And that's what we tend to do, and it isn't healthy, and it isn't right in our heart, it isn't right in our soul, and it isn't right in this community. Yes. You know, there's an organization called, a government organization called the CDC, right, which is the Center for Disease Control. In an organization, triangulation and gossip are diseases. They're deadly. They're deadly, festering diseases that can get inside of an organization like this, and eat it from the ground up. And so this practice, compassionate, direct communication, that's the CDC. That's what heals and prevents those diseases from eating away at the core of this community. Compassionate communication, speaking our truth with love directly to one another. Are you willing to abide in that? That one was less enthusiastic than the last one. Yes. You see, one of the things we realized as we created this mission and these core values is some of these are actually a call up higher. Some of these are ways that we are not 100% showing up as yet. But they are a call higher. They are a call to stretch and to be more so that we can bring this community to the next level. So are you willing? Are you willing? Are you willing? Stewardship. Stewardship is knowing that we are heirs to God's kingdom. We are heirs to the kingdom and all that that entails. We are heirs to the financial treasure. We are heirs to the love, to the healing, to the ideas and the resources. We are heirs to God's kingdom. And as we receive that treasure, we covenant to be wise and conscious in how we use it. Use it with God first as priority. And so we give and receive in a cycle with God first in our own personal life and as a community. We tithe 10% of our treasure right back to God's house. And we know that that treasure will be used to fulfill the mission. Stewardship is wise and conscious use of our treasure. Are you willing to abide in that? Yes. Yes. And all of the others, you will see them show up more and more. Things like prayer. Of course, prayer is a core value. Prayer is in and through and as. Prayer is first. Prayer is in the middle. Prayer is at the end. Prayer is all the way through all of the activities. Outreach is another value that we came up with. Outreach means this is good stuff. There is powerful truth and love and healing here, and we don't want it to stay stuck inside these walls. We want to reach out to the community. And the other piece of that is that we come back into our mission of healing and transforming the lives of all people, even if they never walk through those doors. We are here to serve and bring God's love and God's good out beyond as well as within. We value education, the education of our children and the education of ourselves. And this ministry will continue to provide opportunities for growth and learning. Anybody done learning? Hang on, you still breathing? Okay. If you're still breathing, there's still more to learn. There's still more to grow into. And so we value that in our lives. We make a commitment to continually, spiritually grow. Service. Fellowship. Yes, and fellowship, yes, fellowship is about connecting with one another, but you'll be happy to know that also embedded in that core value is food. Yeah. Yes. I've only been here a few times, but I can already clearly see this community values fellowshipping together and breaking bread together, and it's a good thing. Breaking bread together is an ancient tradition of sharing and being in community. We value that. And so this set of core values will be the directive. So that when someone has a great idea about an event or a program and says, Reverend Frank, how about we do this? He will be able to say, does this support our values? Is this in alignment with our values and who we are and what we want to be? And each decision that the leadership makes and the board makes and the staff makes and the ministers make will come back to this as directive. Isn't that powerful? Yes. And it's when we send this message to the universe, this is who we are. Don't tell me there aren't any mermaids, because I am one. I am something not fitting into your definition. I am this. I am these words. And we as a community will step into the world fully and wholly as who we are, without apology, standing in who we are, expressing who we are, sharing who we are, and will draw all people unto us that vibrate at that same frequency, whose heart sings the same song. They'll come. And that's a good thing. So let's bring it back up one last time, and let's say it together. It's coming. So breathe. And know that this is what's being spoken into your heart, into the heart of this ministry, and into the world. The universe is listening, saying, who are you? What are you about? What do you choose to be? And we say, Unity of Hollywood is a spiritually progressive community dedicated to healing and transforming the lives of all people through prayer, education, and love. And so it is.